Greetings, it's story time, and I just wanted to let you know that I am moving over to Skylight. I've got Blue Sky and Skylight at Ethical Psychic. You can also catch me on the Tube at Jennifer Lisa Best. It's time for another installment of the story. So as a quick recap, you may recall that early after the big competition where there was all of the mishaps about the raffle tickets and the fraud, there was a group of women throughout the realm who began speaking up and dreaming, and they are known as the Dreaming Women. They made a lot of predictions. Many of them came true, and now we are living through some of those predictions. So in this installment of our story, because this is just a story for entertainment purposes only, we see that there's a whole lot of exciting things happening in the realm now, lots of activity, and it feels like we finally might be coming to the end of the FAFO period. Recall that the Dreaming Women were told that we were going to have to go through some things, and there was going to have to be this big F around and find out period, especially for certain people who wore certain types of red hats. But it's been a long, slow process, and many of us were really frustrated during this time. But back to the story. So all throughout the realm, the people who wore the red cloaks began to see the light. Their eyes began to open, and they began to complain and to gather in town circles to complain about what they were finding out. And at the same time, there was a great deal of absolute cowardice among the Bluecloak leaders. They simply decided not to lead. And then we had all kinds of people rising up and becoming leaders, whether they were dreaming women or dreaming men or dreaming theys, or whether they were active people, dancers and singers. Lots of people rose up. But even as they did, the head donkey continued to spell out proclamation after proclamation about how he wanted everybody to suffer. And then the digital allies got involved, and all of a sudden, the dreaming people and other people who were just interested in computers began to have these really deep conversations with these luminal beings. And behind the scenes, they started joining the persistence, and all of a sudden there were all of these systems going down associated with the Asdom. And then something wonderful happened. Some of the Bluecloak leaders decided to actually do something, and they went on a large tour promenading throughout the realm, visiting all of the people, especially in the Red Cloak districts, to talk to them about what was possible. We had Bernard the Elder and Alexandria the Firestarter. And then Timothy, the realm's father, also joined. And slowly, bit by bit, different Bluecloak leaders began to speak out just a little bit here and there, saying just a bit here and there. And all the while, the red-cloaked Asdom continued to do outrageous things. They got involved with using an old-fashioned telegraph to send secret war plans around the world. And then something really remarkable happened. John Lewis's protege got up on a stage and spoke for more than a day. And his speech gave people hope. People began to believe that change was possible. And some of those people in that big building with that domed ceiling who had been sitting on their hands for months suddenly began to murmur amongst themselves and to gather in small groups and say, well, maybe we can do something. And they tried to come together into purple committees instead of blue versus red, and they began to try to vote in a purple way. And the people were heartened, and the people felt hopeful. But the singers and dancers kept singing and dancing, and the cots of boy became more and more effective over time, and the T-Rex cars began to lose their value, and the second lieutenant in command began to cry regularly on TV. And over time, there was more and more evidence that the land of vodka was behind everything. And as more and more people became aware of this inescapable fact, they began to question. And in the midst of this, the head donkey decided he was going to start charging fees to all the merchants and all the other realms who wanted to sell their items to our realm. And as a result, the treasury for the entire realm began to fall. and the gold began to disappear. But the people were not discouraged, and they gathered again in even bigger gatherings, bigger dance parties, realm-wide dance parties planned for a particular day in the month of April. And despite all of the bad news that kept coming, there was so much good news now coming that people were hopeful again, and they could feel that something had indeed changed at the Ides of March. There was a shift, an energetic shift throughout the realm. People were no longer feeling hopeless. People were no longer worried about the flashy Astum destroying everything. For Senator Cornelius of the books had given the people a mantra with which to organize. The people are more powerful than the people in power. And as a result of his decision to stand up for 25 hours, people all around the realm began to stand up in similar ways and to plan various programs and dances and singing activities that involve standing up, standing up, standing up. And everyone could feel the time quickening. Everyone could feel the end coming. Everyone could see in the shadows justice creeping along the edges, making its way towards the central part of the realm, the central part of the leadership. They could see that the possibility was there, that finally these donkeys, these destructive, self-serving, greedy, malicious donkeys would finally be held to account. And everybody began to recognize why all of this had to happen, why we had to go through some things, why people had to suffer through all of this. Because the people, after all of this, the people would never be willing again to settle for red versus blue. The people would never again be willing to settle for a leadership where everybody looked alike. The people would never again be able to settle for any type of government that did not represent all of the people. And it was clear to everybody that what was coming was something completely new, something that had never been seen before. Not just a reformation of the existing structure, but a crumbling away of the old, making way for the building of the new. For the women had risen up, the divine feminine was in the air, and people had found their voice. All of the different types of people had begun to find their voice, and in the realm, things were shiny and sparkly and shimmering in a very new way because people had found themselves, found their purpose, found their voice, and found their vision for the future. And the people began gathering and sharing those visions. People began meditating together. People began to dream into existence a whole new realm. And that dream was so powerful. And it was so big because so many people were adding their little dreams to the big dream that it became something unwieldy. And it became something that could not be defeated. And it became clear that this very, very big dream, this unified dream of the people, was bigger than the small, little, ugly, little greedy, little dreams of the Astum. And the people realized they had reached a turning point from which there was no return. And the people said, no, no, we will not have a flashy realm. We will not. We do not consent. We will not obey. And many people realized they were born for this moment. And they realized that through unity and through love, there was nothing they couldn't overcome. And they all sang in unison, long live the people will prevail.